Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Beyond the Clouds Edge to Edge Transformation. Speaking of transformation, I met this amazing guy by the name of Dinesh Chandra almost 20 years ago. And at the time, he was working on change management at Cisco and other large technology companies. Lots of mergers and acquisitions and all the changes that come with it. At some point, though, he did something really weird. He started changing people's hearts. Dinesh, tell us about your story. How did you end up going from industrial engineering change management into helping people change their own hearts or finding their hearts?
Thank you so much, Shankar, for inviting me. So when I was about 8 years old, I think, and I used to wonder why there is so much poverty. And there is so much technology available, there is so much wisdom available, but why people are poor? So I said, maybe technology is the answer. So I did my mechanical engineering, and which is the country known for technology, of course, USA. So I just packed up my bags, came to US, studied industrial engineering, and started working with Beckman Coulter. Working there, we had a major success. Coulter was struggling at that time in the sense that our best product, the Japanese were selling their products cheaper than our cost. So we were totally in panic. And being the director of productivity and quality, I took the charge and I went around, checked out. Harley Davidson was an organization which was leading the transformation. So we had Ron Hutchinson work with us, and Hewlett Packard and some of the organizations which were leaders in quality. And we turned Coulter around. And in that process, I started wondering, what do I do next? Just around that time, I met Peter Block. And Peter Block asked me one question: how are you contributing to where you find yourself in life? That was a very powerful question. I thought about it. And I realized why that question is so important, because it's not that other people don't contribute to the issues. Let's say two people are having conflict. Of course, both of them are contributing. But the wisdom of that question is, there's not much I can do about the other person, but I can certainly do something about myself, my choices. So that question was very empowering, and it changed my life, that one conversation. And with that, I started responding to my inner calling, which was to go back to India. And I've always wondered why all my life I have kind of lived between US and India. And now I'm getting some idea. So India represents internal growth to me. And that's where my story starts. So when I went to India, I joined iShare Group. I was invited by Government of India Trade Development Authority when they heard about our success at Coulter. And it was a sweltering heat day, June in New Delhi. You know how sweaty it gets. And the air conditioning broke down. There were about 10 people sitting there. All of us were sweating. But obviously, they were interested in quality, so they stayed there. So Dr. Satyamurthy was very interested, and he came to visit me in Miami, Florida, saw the work we had done, went back and organized a meeting with his team leaders and his top team. And there I met Vikram Lal, who was the chairman then. And on the first day of our workshop, he invited me to his home. He said, "What would it take for you to come back?" I said, "Only thing I want is your time." And he agreed to that. So we moved to India. And at the height of my success, when Aisha became very successful with 6 different factories they had all over India, Aisha Tractors, Aisha Motors, most notably the Enfield motorcycle, which we turned that around. That was the biggest joy of my life. And today, Enfield is the cash cow of Aisha Group. And the interesting note, it was designed in England, but they stopped making it. Now, India is exporting that vintage motorcycle of the World War II movies. Now, India is exporting from that factory in Chennai to England and to the rest of the world. So that all that was going on, but this is where my transformation starts. So one evening, my brother-in-law, who happens to be a hematologist, he's in town, and he says, "Sit down, I have to give you some news." And he tells me, "Dinesh, your wife had leukemia, and untreated, she has 3 months to live. Shankar, that moment, with all my success, the societal way of looking at success, money, power, fame, meant nothing. It felt like somebody pulled the rug under my feet and I fell down. And then when I got up, I was a different person. And that's where I felt my transformation began. And from hospitals to hospitals, from Pittsburgh to Miami to Sloan Kettering in New York, a bone marrow transplant. 2 years later, she passed away. But in passing away, she gave me a gift. And that's where I shifted from my head to my heart. So I realized that we are not complete if we only operate in head. And that's where my story of transformation, how can we move people to connect with their hearts? Because that's where the real change happens, when you connect with people heart to heart.
Wow, that's a wonderful story. Now, from a purely from a business perspective, one of the challenges is people say if you're in your heart, you will maybe sell the farm, you'll give away everything. How can you also be profitable? I mean, is it enough to be in the heart, to do good business, to be successful in your career?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because let's examine what happens after that. So when I got into my heart, first of all, I begin to grow. So your internal growth starts. What do I mean by that? Now, I was, first 2 years, I was totally in bereavement. And we started doing now, because I shifted. I shifted from more technology, the external to internal. Now, internal growth, we started doing transformation retreats. In one of the retreats, I met Anu Aga. She was the chairwoman of Thermex Corporation, very well known. And she had lost her husband and only 25-year-old son in the same month. We thought that she's not going to come. Nevertheless, she came to Dharamshala, and I saw her so cheerful. I said, this is unbelievable. This is not possible. So I asked her, Anu, are you real? How can you be so cheerful with what the tragedy you have seen? She smiled. She said, why don't you come for a walk with me and I'll tell you a story. And Shankar, I went for a 30-minute walk with her. And when I came back, again, my bereavement was over. I was a new person. And I realized that as internally you begin to grow, so your journey continues from your head to your heart, and it doesn't stop there. You continue to go to deeper and deeper consciousness. I raised my two daughters, and they were 12 and 10 at that time. And raising them also gave me an opportunity to balance my feminine and masculine energy. I used to make dinner for them in a very engineering fashion, make it and serve them out of the main pot. And I had a caretaker for them, Jane. So I asked Jane that when you serve them, they are very happy. When I serve them same food, they're not that happy. She said, you don't understand. Girls like beauty. Don't serve them from the pot. Set it up, set the table, set some flowers, give them nice bowls, nice plates, cutlery, and all those things, the beautifying things, the beauty of life, they are as important as the technology. So I think that's the inner growth, the beauty, the joy. And so I kind of balanced my feminine and masculine energy. And that journey continued. The girls grew up and they left home. And I had the privilege of meeting Dalai Lama. And this was about 20 years ago. And we asked Dalai Lama one question. I was at a crossroad in my life and I said, what is true wealth and how do we create it? Because what I call my first mountain of success, where you are going by the societal norms, ego driven, and you get your job, career, anything you want, you work hard for it, you're persistent, and you get it. And Shankar, you have done an excellent job, so you know yourself how you became an entrepreneur. So it requires that persistence. After that, what I faced in my life, it meant nothing at that time. So I said, what is the next step? Rightly at that time, met Dalai Lama. You ask the question and the teachers show up. So the Dalai Lama answered that true wealth question by saying that there are tangible wealth and there is intangible wealth. He said, tangible wealth, you all know, your house, your bank balance, your cars and everything, stock market and everything. but your intangible is something different. So I gave some thought to that intangible, and I made a matrix for myself about 10 intangible. I co-edited a book that came out after that open space in Dharamshala, and that was called What is True Wealth and How Do We Create It? And in that book, I had that matrix of 10 things I'm going to measure. One of them was, how do I listen? And my youngest daughter, Sonia, is the best. I said, Sonia, how good I am on listening on a scale of 1 to 10. He says, Dad, you're about 3 out of 10. So I said, okay, I've got a long way to go. And now I started focusing on those. So I would say for last 15 years, I was totally focused on grounding myself. And thanks to my second wife, I met her just around that time after meeting Dalai Lama. She was here in California, so I moved from Florida to California. All the people you meet in your life, they're all your teachers. At times, it's very difficult for us to understand uh, when we are going through our conflicts and challenges. We say, oh my God. But now, when I connect all the dots of my life, everyone who shows up in your life is a teacher. It's your choice to take the gift they're offering you or not to take. So I have received a lot of gifts. I told you from Peter Block, I received a gift. From my first wife, I received the gift of shifting from my head to heart. And my second wife, I received a gift from my heart to getting into deeper consciousness where I am today. I met one more interesting person, Mia, of Finland. You know, like your already teacher shows up. Mia Ayatollah, she was a big help in what do we mean by getting conscious? Well, we operate mostly on autopilot. Subconscious controls 90% of how we behave, what we do. But if you begin to examine the patterns of your life, songs you like, movies you like, people you're attracting to, and if there's a pattern of certain people, say why those people show up in my life. I had a friend, Joe, he was married 3 times. I said, Dinesh, why do I attract the same kind of women again and again? And I said, Joe, have you ever wondered what is it that is attracting the same kind of people? So I think that gives us a chance to understand our own patterns. And again, remembering Peter Block's gift, if I focus back on my own self, so that told me that the more light I put on those subconscious, the more conscious I became. And that really helped me because with that consciousness, I realized that I have choice. In every moment, I have a choice. I don't have to act what my forefathers and grandfather did 10,000 years ago, which I carry in my genes and my sanskar, the Sanskrit word for that. I have a choice to be free of those sanskars and patterns. And in this moment, as a conscious human being, I have infinite choices. Of course, you can make very conscious choices. I'm making now of living a healthy and happy life. And my mission now is to create this blue planet of ours into blue zone, a little bit happier, a little bit healthier. With this inspiration and with all my learning, connecting all the dots, I launched a new organization 3 years ago, Global Wellbeing Network. And our mission is very simple, to just make our planet a little bit healthier and happier. The best way to bring about a change is through corporations, through entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs create that energy. With that energy, we can reach out to a large number of people. And that's my goal now, is to reach out to a large number of people and share this message. Of course, it's very easy, but the path is arduous, and it took me almost all my lifetime to get here. So I want to share that learning and knowledge, work with organizations. And fortunately, we have 3 or 4 organizations now who have signed up to create a culture of well-being. So that's where I am today.
Dinesh, I see this picture behind you of two mountains and the sun rising. Can you tell me what it really means? You talked about the first mountain, but can you continue that story?
Yes, yeah, there's a book by David Brooks by this name. When I read that book, I realized that most of us go through that story. The first mountain, the societal aspect of success. But the second mountain starts when you begin to realize that the challenges of your life, and sometimes you get in the valley, like I got into the valley with facing my personal challenges of life. And I call universe as equal opportunity ego buster. So when you're on top of your ego, when you have climbed the first mountain, that's where I think you get challenges. And if you open up your heart, like Rumi says, light enters through your heart. In that moment, if you choose to use service and you begin to expand your consciousness, like Einstein, I was struck by his statement that our purpose should be to expand our circle of compassion and to include all beings in there. I never understood the meaning of that. When I heard from Dalai Lama that we should take universal responsibility, then also I explored how can I can't barely take responsibility for myself, barely for my family. How can I take universal responsibility? Sadhguru reinforces that point. The more responsible you become, the more you expand your power, the more you expand your consciousness. Taking responsibility for the whole is the beginning of the second mountain journey, what psychologists call self actualization. In this journey, you take responsibility for a larger self, maybe for your community, maybe for your city, maybe for your nation, or maybe for the planet. How can I contribute to make life better for one human being? Or if you can touch 100,000 or a million, the possibilities are infinite. So that is the second mountain where we begin to serve a larger purpose. I'm sure you have heard that universe conspires to support a larger purpose. If you're very committed to your intention, you're very focused, you become successful as an entrepreneur or whatever you're doing in your career. I got a taste of it in 84. If you remember, there was a Union Carbide Bhopal crisis. And I had just been in Bhopal a week ago. I got back to US and, this major disaster and thousands of people can't breathe. I knew the local doctor, NP Mishra. So I called him. I said, Dr. Mishra, what can we do from US? He said, Dinesh, if you can send a duck called Theodore, it's a bronco healer. It can help thousands of people who are suffering from lung problem, breathing problem. And I had a first-hand taste of that problem because my younger daughter, when she was young, she had asthma. So when she could not breathe, we had to rush her to the hospital. So I could instantly relate to that. And I got on to the job. And how universe supports me is the moment I heard about that, I checked out which are the companies which are making that medicine. And Key Pharmaceuticals was a company that was making it. So I grabbed the phone and I called the CEO of the company. He answered the phone. So he said, who are you? I said, I've just talked to the doctor in Bhopal. And he said, yes, I heard about the Union Carbide accident. What can I do? I said, the doctor tells me that you produce this drug Theodore and they need it badly. He said, Dinesh, done. We give you $1 million worth of Theodore. And Shankar, in that moment, I shifted. I realized the power of when you align yourself with a larger purpose, your universe will support you. The next step is how do we air fly to Delhi? They needed it immediately. So we make our team and we start calling airlines. British Airways say, we'll deliver it for you. I take the same flight. I land in Delhi. Now, how do we get it to Bhopal? I ended up in Prime Minister's office. There was another guy standing there. He says, I heard what you're saying. He took us to Gopi Arora, who was advisor to Prime Minister. So we explained to Gopi Arora that we had these Theodore, Dr. Mishra wanted that. He calls up Indian Airlines and he said, it'll be all done. And when I reached Bhopal, the medicine reached Bhopal. So that was a total miracle from that phone call to Dr. Mishra and getting the medicine in Bhopal. After that, once I realized that power, I said how we can use the same power of working the larger purpose. And that's where I am. I'm counting on that same universal power to get us on the second mountain, which is making our planet healthier and happier.
This is amazing. I remember when you came back to the Bay Area, you worked on change management, but a different kind of change management, even in tech companies. So tell us a little bit of your story and how was it received in large companies like Cisco at the time?
Well, I was very fortunate when I moved. My second wife was, of course, here in California. So I moved to California, and I feel whenever you are moved to a place, there is a reason. The energy of Bay Area, as you know, is filled with entrepreneurs, and it's the energy where there is tremendous amount of not only the technology but also a very deep connection to the higher consciousness. Dr. Doug Walton was working at Cisco at that time. We met at one of our mutual friend, Dr. Prasad Kaipa, and both of us connected with, and he invited me to work with him. And he was a perfect integration of technology and deep consciousness, I would say, very conscious human being. Cisco was trying to bring about a collaborative culture. And if you remember, John Chambers was at the helm. And John was an amazingly charming person. And I had few occasions to interact with him. We found that if you get people to a deeper place, that's where the change happens. The biggest issue in collaboration is ego conflicts. How do we transcend that ego? I develop these simple images. So one image I'll share with you, Shankar. Two people are having conflict. In the old times, what we used to do is both of them leave office and don't come back to work until you're resolved. So they would go out and they would realize that if they want to get back to office, they better resolve their issues. And then they would somehow resolve it, but it was not long lasting. They would resolve one issue, the source of conflict will remain. So, how do we resolve that? So, if you begin to think of the other person, like right now, you and I, if I think of Shankar as my right hand, and if I think of Dinesh as my left hand, of course, I have to make sure that both hands are delighted at the end of this conversation. And whatever we decide to act, it is in the best interest of both my hands. If we begin to develop this kind of deep connection with each other, you don't need to talk about team building and collaboration and play games. The best example is, I would say, Doug and I. Both of us collaborated so deeply. Today, we are the co-founders of Global Wellbeing Network because of that connection. So I have found it's very, very important to create these deeper connections. Not only your professional life is satisfied, but your personal life also benefits from that. Unfortunately, in organizations, we don't encourage that. So if somebody is, let's say, he's burnt out or he's stressed out, they do not want people to discuss their personal issues. They want people to leave emotions at home. And at the most, if personal has an issue, they'll send them to EAP, Employee Assistance Program. And those programs, you are sitting with a counselor. There is no support system. And as Dr. Doty mentioned, the biggest thing for human beings, why they live long and healthy life, what we learned from Blue Zones, is a deep sense of connection. Our corporations are not aware of that yet. That's what I'm looking for, those kind of leaders who are aware that how important that emotional connection between human beings is. And what we do, we use that human connections to work towards well-being. So some of my clients with whom I'm working, what we encourage is the leadership team to pick one thing they want to change, which is for the well-being. Fortunately, people, egos don't come. Because if the whole team is talking about how can we make each other healthy and happy, all of them agree. It's not a career issue where they begin to compete. It's well-being of all. How we can help each other. They begin to support each other. They begin to connect with each other emotionally as well. If one person say, I want to go walking every morning, but I'm not able to do it. And it turns out one person is walking. He says, hey, why don't we both of us go together? So they're supporting each other. And on top of that, what we also do is once a month, we have a gathering. You probably know that the most successful organization with transformation is Alcoholic Anonymous, which is dealing with a very difficult subject. And what is the powerful thing? Once again, connection with people. It's a support group which meets every week and where they share, they are vulnerable, they're authentic, they're connecting heart to heart at a deeper level. That's where the change happens. So what we are finding is we have this 12-week program. Every week we meet with their leadership team. And what we are finding is in that process, not only they develop one habit which is very, very important to them, which they've been trying to change, they also develop an emotional bond with each other. And even after this meeting is over, when they get into their other meetings, that bonding continues. They begin to look at each other from a different perspective in a more compassionate way, that we are all human beings. We are something deeper. We are not the body, but we are also a consciousness. We are not only a particle, but we are also a wave. We are, in a broader sense, we are the technology and we are the spirit. And when we begin to integrate those two, within ourselves, within our team, in our corporations, and this in our world, then our blue planet can truly become a place where we can all be happy and healthy.
Dinesh, you're talking my language. That's why my company is called Blue Horizons. It just happens that the phrase you used is pretty much the name of my company. Also, there was no plan, but it's synchronicity.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, technology today makes it possible for us to connect with anybody anytime, just at the click of a button. So, in theory, we are all connected. We have access to each other. We have access to information, everything, right?
Right.
But there is a sense of loneliness in spite of all that. So, is technology helping us or hurting us?
Well, you have just asked the perfect question, Shankar. Thank you, because I have been pondering over this question ever since AI is making such great strides. So I think of AI as no different than when the fire was invented. When someone millions of years ago clicked two stones and a spark came out. And when the knife was invented, and when the nuclear technology was invented, what do they all have in common? We can use fire to for a lot of useful things, and we can also use fire to burn things. We can use knife to do a lot of useful things, to surgery to save lives. We can also use knife to kill each other. AI is the same way. AI is so powerful that it's going to make our mundane tasks obsolete. Also in the area of well-being, AI is offering such good things for us to change our habits, but at the same time, AI could be very destructive, and of course it requires tremendous amount of controls. It cannot be unbridled technology. While this technology is taking exponential leaps, as human beings we also have to take exponential leaps to match up with the technology. We should not worry about the mundane things which we have been doing. We need to focus on connecting with the source to do those tasks which AI until now is not capable. How do we encourage our teams, our professionals, our associates to access the deeper self? And for that, organizations are now welcoming mindfulness. We have to make our human beings more conscious so they don't operate their life subconsciously. We have to provide opportunities for them to grow, for their internal growth, for emotional growth. And for that, we have to do much more beyond EAP. We have to provide these kind of emotional support circles inside the organization. My friend Liz Wiseman calls it accepting people as whole, not treating them in fractions, that you only bring your intellect here. No, we want you as a whole human being. Your physical body is important, and organizations are doing a lot. Many organizations have gyms and all that, but well being is much more than that. Well being is creating a culture where people collaborate with each other, where people are going for the second mountain, where people are self actualizing, where they do not get caught up in the ego conflicts, where people are connected to each other, where they treat each other as my right hand and treat themselves as left hand. When we create that kind of culture where leaders are authentic, where leaders are vulnerable, they have no problem saying that, hey, I'm stressed out. We have problem. How do we solve it together? That's the culture. Then we will optimize the stress. But if we continue to use fear, which we use in Bay Area at Christmas time, the bottom 10% will have to go. And the whole year, people are struggling not to be in that bottom 10%. I always used to ask in our retreats, can the deadwood please raise their hand? Nobody is deadwood. We are all alive, conscious human beings with infinite potential. If if we are not performing our highest potential, then we need to think it through. We need to change the systems. We need to create that culture. Human beings who are reaching to their highest potential and deeply connected, working for the higher purpose, supporting each other, making workplace as something you look forward to going. We used to call it TGIF, not TGIF, but TGIM. Thank God it's Monday. I'm looking forward to going and meeting my colleagues, working with them because I feel appreciated, I feel respected, and I feel a great sense of achievement. It gives meaning to my life. It's not a stress factory where I need to go earn money so I can pay my mortgage. That paradigm is gone. We need to go to the new paradigm. I'm not going there just to earn money. I'm going there to build something which is going to make a difference to humanity. That's when we are motivated internally rather than this fear that I don't want to be in the bottom 10%. Shankar, you're smiling because you have lived the second life, so you know what I'm talking about. When you're operating from that internal motivation, then your life is bliss in every moment. You are in the flow. When you live that life, you don't need to tell anyone anything. People look at you, they see your energy, how joyful you are. And that joy is very, very infectious. And then you begin to transform people. So that's how, in the age of AI, we are going to transform ourselves and our fellow human beings, starting with the corporations.
Really, you're making a lot of sense now. I must say, thank God it's Wednesday today. Every moment, every minute, everything we do matters. And I'm glad you're talking about these things, Dinesh. And to everybody listening out there, I'm always looking for different views. Yes, we are in the midst of chaos. So much is changing every moment. And I was going to ask you, what will people do if there's not enough work? There's a ton of things to do. So let's find ways to connect, to find meaning in our life and in our work and in our technology. You talk about balance, and it's such a dynamic thing. I feel like I'm in a circus all the time trying to balance. But yes, it's an art and it requires practice. Thanks again for the reminder.
We are all trying for that. As I talk to you every day, that balance is the challenge. And that's what keeps me going and get up in the morning and jump out of bed.